So Ukraine's not getting any new money from anywhere right now, and they're losing the war pretty badly. So, so the question is, so where do you get the money? Well, maybe they can figure this out, but all of a sudden, Johnson and the White House, Mike Johnson, the White House, say, "Hey, we got $300 billion sitting right here in the banks. Let's just take it and spend it on Ukraine." If you do that, you will destroy the U.S. Treasury market.
In this compelling analysis, financial expert Jim Rickards discusses a potentially disastrous scenario for the US Treasury market. With Ukraine in dire need of funds and the proposal to seize Russian-held US treasuries, Rickards warns that such a move could jeopardize the stability of the market. He highlights the complexities of freezing and seizing assets, shedding light on the potential consequences for international finance. This thought-provoking commentary raises questions about the wisdom of using Treasury securities as leverage in geopolitical conflicts and the broader implications for the global financial landscape. With that, let's dive into the rest of the video to hear Jim's full thesis.
Russian central bank had held a portion of their reserves in U.S. Treasury securities, dollar denominated, but U.S. Treasury securities in particular of different maturities, bills, notes, probably some bonds, mostly shorter term bills and notes. To their credit, Elvira Nabiullina, who's the head of the Central Bank of Russia, she, in my view, she's the only central banker in the world who knows what she's doing. She put 25% of Russia's reserves in physical gold in held in custody in Russia, in Moscow. So the point being, you can't freeze gold. I've always liked that about gold. It's not digital. It's not electronic. You can't freeze it. You can say what you want, but so that part is off limits. And they had some other types of investments. So a big chunk of it, about $300 billion, which was about half their reserve position. Their reserves were about 600 billion. They had 150 billion in gold. Was in U.S. Treasuries. Now, the last paper Treasury security was issued like in 1979. They're all digital. They're all, I call the dollar the original cryptocurrency. But they're held in custody, mostly in Belgium, but other European banks as well, other custodians, Deutsche Bank, UBS, and some in the United States, but mostly in Europe. Now, on day one of the war, or within a matter of days, those treasuries were frozen. But let's define what frozen means. Frozen means you, Russia, you still own them, but you can't have them. You can't collect the interest. You can't sell them. You can't trade them. They're yours, but we're locking them up. And the U.S. Treasury and the Fed control the ledger, so they can enforce that. They can make sure that those securities cannot be transferred. That's freezing. Now what they're talking about, and they're talking about doing this by February 24th, which happens to be the second anniversary of the start of the war. I don't know why they have to pick anniversary dates, but that's what they're talking about. They're talking about seizing them. Seizing is different. That's when you steal them. That's when you take them and say, "Hey, Russia, pardon me, these are not just frozen; they're ours. We're taking them. They're not yours anymore." And selling them at the market and using the $300 billion of proceeds to finance the war in Ukraine. Not only are we taking your money, but we're using it to finance your adversary in a war. Now, little background, Biden and the White House want $61 billion of additional money for Ukraine. That has not passed. There's a lot of opposition in the House. Some opposition in the Senate. I would say if it were up to the Senate, it would pass. But the House is saying no. And what Biden did, what the White House did, they bundled 10 billion for Israel, 60 billion for Ukraine's, some number, I think another 10 billion or so for maybe a little more for Taiwan, in one bill. And the idea was, even if you don't like Ukraine, you don't want to vote against Israel. So it would be a way to get everybody to vote for it. Well, the House said no. And Mike Johnson, Speaker of the House, said no. And they said, first of all, we want them separated. So the House voted for Israeli aid. That already passed. It's with the Senate, but they have not voted on Ukraine. And then they said, well, if you insist on doing that, we want money for the border And Biden said, okay, I'll take more money for the border. And by the way, we'll use it to process more illegal aliens. And they said, no, you can't use it for that. We want you to shut the border. So this is at an impasse right now. They might shut down the government over this in the coming days. But the point is, there's no money for Ukraine. As of now, there is no money for Ukraine. The European Union separately has not approved any new money for Ukraine because Hungary is exercising a veto power over that because the EU requires a unanimous vote. So Ukraine's not getting any new money from anywhere right now, and they're losing the war pretty badly. So so the question is, so where do you get the money? Well, maybe they can figure this out, but all of a sudden, Johnson and the White House, Mike Johnson, the White House, say, hey, we got $300 billion sitting right here in the banks. Let's just take it and spend it on Ukraine. If you do that, you will destroy the U.S. Treasury market. I don't think so. Maybe he will now. I mean, I've been talking about it. Others have been talking about it. Maybe somebody will tap on the shoulder and say, hey, Mr. Speaker, do you understand what you're doing here? Um, but Janet Yellen, who's sort of not that bright, kind of does what she's told. She's going along with the White House view of this. The Senate is for it but they're all warmongers. Even the Republicans in the Senate
Yeah.
are rhino warmongers, and of course the Democrats think it's a good idea. The House is divided, but look, Johnson just got elected Speaker. Who is he? He's a Louisiana congressman. Apparently, I haven't met him, but apparently very bright, a really well-respected constitutional scholar. I think he's done a lot of things right, so I kind of support him. But why should he be an international monetary expert? Why should he understand what we're talking about right now? He clearly doesn't. They just think it's free money. What country in the world would want to own a treasury security, $1 worth, if you
Right.
think the US will take it if they don't like what you're doing?
In this next discussion, Jim Rickards shares his perspective on the BRICS alliance, emphasizing its economic focus rather than a political union. He acknowledges the potential benefits of a currency union within BRICS, but points out the political differences among its members. Jim Rickards cautions against underestimating the progress made by BRICS, citing the establishment of institutions like the New Development Bank and the Contingent Reserve Arrangement. He particularly highlights the significance of expanding the currency union to allow member countries more flexibility in spending. Jim Rickards suggests that the evolving BRICS dynamics could have implications for global trade and currency relationships.
The
Yeah.
BRICS is not a political union. It is an economic union with a focus on trade and currency. Yeah, China and India, they fought in the Himalayas. Saudi Arabia and Iran are both members. They've had their differences, et cetera. So to say there are all these political differences among the members and it's not a perfect, marriage or whatever. Yeah, but that's not the point. The point is
Right.
they're working on a currency union and a free trade area, and you can have that. India and China can fight over the Himalayas all they want, but if they reduce tariffs and have a common currency, that's a big deal. And as far as they've been talking about this a long time, they haven't made much progress. That's not true. They've made a lot of progress. They have the New Development Bank, which is basically a clone of the World Bank. They have the Contingent Reserve Arrangement, which is basically a clone of the IMF. They spent a lot of the last 10 years duplicating the Bretton Woods institutions under their own control and for their own purposes. So they've sort of cloned Bretton Woods in a way they control. They're building their own communications networks. And here's the big thing that, they had the August Leaders Summit where, Prime Minister Modi and President Xi Jinping and Cyril Ramaphosa and the other leaders were there. Putin had to come in by video because there's a warrant out for his arrest from the International Criminal Court. But I was one of the ones writing and talking about how it would be highly significant in terms of advancing the currency. The new BRICS currency is what we're talking about. Gold linked, by the way. Then it sort of came and went, and people said, "Hey Jim, nothing happened. Like you were talking about this, and what was the
Right.
big deal?" Well, they admit there was a very big deal, which was adding the new members, because there's no point. What's the benefit of a bilateral trading currency if it's India and China and they agree on it's easy to invent a currency. Just pick a name and print some, and there you go. So, but if India and China had a common currency, and India shipped goods to China and got paid in that currency, what can India do with the currency? All you can do is buy stuff from China. You might need some stuff from China, but you want to go shopping everywhere else in the
Yeah.
world. Same thing with Russia and India. But so how do you make a currency union work? Well, the answer is you expand the membership so that when you receive the currency for your exports, you can spend it somewhere else. That's what the euro is. And the euro has 16 members. Sorry, 19 members today. So so the key to a successful currency union, you don't need a common fiscal policy. I mean, does anyone think
Right.
Germany and Greece have the same fiscal policies?
In today's eye-opening discussion, we delved into the critical financial challenges facing Ukraine and the potential repercussions for the US Treasury market. Jim Rickards shared valuable insights on the risks of seizing Russian-held US treasuries and the broader impact on global finance. Additionally, Jim Rickards provided a thoughtful analysis of the BRICS alliance, shedding light on its economic objectives and potential consequences for the US economy. As we navigate these complex financial landscapes, it's essential to stay informed and engaged. If you found today's content valuable, don't forget to subscribe, like, and hit the notification bell to stay updated on our latest insights. Your opinions matter, so feel free to share your thoughts in the comments section below.